Hello everyone, welcome back to Spar&Brawl. Hope you're having a good day. So in this video, we're going to talk about the Iran nuclear deal. And just to set it up, I saw this new video of Jimmy Dore, and in the video, he talks about, he kind of makes fun of that all the time. Every year, the US administration is always saying, oh, Iran is 2 weeks away from having a nuclear bomb, or Iran is 1 month away. And, Jimmy Dore, he cracks a few hilarious jokes. I'll include one of them right now, actually.
As soon as Iran finds the keys to that centrifuge, it's going to be bam, bam, bam.
But okay, I wanted to talk to Sam, who knows a lot about this subject. So Sam, Jimmy Dore makes one general point that is so true. They always say, "Oh, Iran is about to have a nuclear bomb. Iran is about to have a nuclear bomb." But are there a few more nuances that we could add, perhaps, to Jimmy Dore's take here? And also, that video by Jimmy Dore was recorded over a week ago, and there are a lot of daily developments almost these days when it comes to the subject. So yeah, what's the latest with the Iran-US deal, Iran nuclear deal, and what can you add to Jimmy Dore's video?
Sure. I don't know, to be honest, that much about the topic really, but thank you. What he was referring to is that Anthony Blinken, I think it was a hearing or something or an interview. He said that Iran could be a mere weeks away from having enough fissile material for a nuclear weapon. So not a nuclear weapon. There's a great article on Business Insider, which I think we put the link in the description, which in detail goes through Blinken's comments and makes a great point that even if Blinken's timeline were correct, even if they were correct, which as Jimmy Dore pointed out, American government has been saying Iran is near making a bomb since, I mean, he said since 1979, but in reality, to be fair, since 2000s. Israeli government has been saying it since 1990s. But even if Blinken's timeline were correct, the capability to build a bomb is not the same as the intent to do so. For example, as far as I know, there are a couple of countries, for example, I think Japan and Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken, they have the capability of building a nuclear bomb, but they have never built it because they never intend to build it. And I mean, it's important to point out that Iran in general has it has a national law which is kind of like a royal decree, equivalent of a royal decree by it's a supreme leader command that bans use of weapons of mass destruction, specifically nuclear weapons. So if Iran even intends to build such a bomb, even if they have the capability and then intends to do that, that would take it would be a huge U-turn for Iranian regime. But some people may want the capability as a sort of a defensive measure against America. But as you said, there has been more development since Blinken's comment. There was a bit of there were mixed reports about the intentions of the new administration, but overall the reports were positive that they're looking at a variety of options to come back to the deal. Iranian foreign minister even suggested that perhaps Europeans can come up with a mechanism that both parties take steps and come back to the deal at the same time. But the Iranian supreme leader took a harder stance and said that US must come back to the deal and take off the sanctions first, and then will go back to full compliance with the deal limits. After that, Biden did an interview in which, when in which basically he said that U.S. will not lift sanctions until Iran comes back to full compliance. But it's important to say that the interview, I mean, when the interviewer asked the follow-up question that, so you will not lift the sanctions until they stop enriching uranium, Biden nodded his head yes. So it kind of looked like a hostage taking video in a way. Sort of Israeli lobby was nearby, and Saudis were on the other side. So I'm not sure if this is a reflection of his actual policy, or if he's just saying this right now because he cannot just go out straight and say, yes, we are trying to get back to the deal. And based on the deal, even Iran is allowed to enrich uranium. The question is on the level and the amount. So the whole. I don't think this interview is a reflection of U.S. policy. And by the way, in a more real way, basically in a more practical way, U.S. has pulled back its navy ships from the Persian Gulf. There are reports that U.S. is trying to basically help or at least not impede a loan going from World Bank to Iran for to help with the fight against coronavirus. And so there are positive signs, and I
Is
don't
that
necessarily.
significant? Is that significant, the whole ship thing?
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, if they, it definitely de-escalates the situation in the Persian Gulf. That's yeah,
And
because
was this
you know
something that Trump had started just the last few months of his administration, right? Or does it go back, having ships in those areas?
Oh, the whole having ships thing goes back, and having military bases. That's
Yeah,
the whole problem, really, that Iran has with the US. They have military bases in Middle East all around them. But in the last few months of Trump administration, it definitely escalated to a whole different level. So yeah, that's definitely a big deal. It's a good sign. And yeah, the thing that I mean, you mentioned the Jimmy Dore video that we used as a way to segue into this story. Um, um, I guess I mean I completely agree with Jimmy Dore, and I understand. I mean, we all, I think, people who watch this agree that the sanctions are somewhat unjustified, and Iran is allowed to develop its own nuclear energy, peaceful nuclear energy, if it wants to, as all evidence so far have shown that it, at least since 2003 onwards, it's only been after peaceful nuclear energy. Um, but I guess Biden administration has to play politics at least now. You're not going to see they are not going to be able to put in a massive culture change in the U.S. that overnight American people are now not as militaristic and not as worried about Iranians and Muslims and blah 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 blah. So they have to play the politics for now. So what Blinken is trying to do here is actually scaring the conservatives, and is scaring the Israeli lobby, and is scaring the Saudi Arabian lobby. He's saying that if we don't go back to the deal, Iran is going to get a nuclear weapon, and that's going to be far worse for you than if we go back to the deal and Iran is still 10 years or 15 years away, or at least Iran is under our watch. So what they're doing is basically they're trying to scare them into coming back to the deal. Well, I don't think they don't necessarily believe that, or they're not necessarily afraid of Iran. It kind of goes back to the same old strategy of the military industrial complex that Gore Vidal argues started with Truman, that we are not going to get uh, we are not going to get the Congress and the people to pay for us stuff unless we scare the shit out of them, unless we scare them by commies or by So in this case, it's not about money; it's about action. Unless you don't scare these people, and Iran is, by the way, tries to do that as well with its military parades, with its all countries do that. Unless there is a you need the carrot and the stick. So unless there is a stick, some people won't be so motivated. So my view is that the Biden administration doesn't believe this. They're just doing that to scare the more conservative and more right wing people into acting faster. Because, well, foreign policy bureaucracy is dominated by people who are pro-Israeli, pro-Saudi, both ideologically and materially, literally connected to these countries. So it's not easy to, overnight, change the whole um, uh, culture of whole system, whole governance. Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see
that's interesting.
what happens.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that is like the general take that's been common, is that if Iran actually gets the nuclear deal, that will be the ultimate insurance and bargaining chip that they would have, rather than right now when they don't have the nuclear bomb. But I also had two questions for you. One is, I heard this Paul J just spoke about this very briefly on the analysis news. He was talking about, since there's so many layers of sanctions, now removing sanctions is actually not that easy, but I'm guessing if there's a will, it's possible. So I'm not sure if you have any comments there. But then my second question is, where's China in all this? Because they were part of the Iran nuclear deal, right? Are they just like, let's just go back to the normal deal? I just haven't heard them say anything or them being mentioned in this conversation.
I don't remember specifically China, but I do remember specifically Russia saying that Iran doesn't have to, America has to act first. But other parties are quite quiet right now, except Europe. Europeans are actually taking a tougher stance suddenly on Iran, and saying France was even suggesting that Saudis should be included in the negotiations. And Europeans are talking about broader negotiations, which would include missiles and other things like that. So Europeans are taking a tough stance, but Russia is taking Iran's side. China, I'm not sure, but I would assume they take Iran's side and say America should act first. But it's not a big, it's not a massive issue for them. They have far
Yeah.
more important foreign policy issues. Uh, Sorry, what was the
The other one
second
was
question?
just the sanctions, that there are so many that,
Oh,
like,
uh,
removing them isn't the easiest thing ever.
sure, yes. If the Senate wasn't in the hand of Democrats, I would agree completely. And even now that Senate is in the hand of Democrats, many representatives
True,
are
because
far
they
more
have to
conservative.
remove it. It's not really up to Biden even.
Some sanctions, yeah,
Hmm.
has to be repealed by. Although he can put an executive order and at least pause them for 4 years.
Yeah,
He could do that. So yeah, but if there is political, wherever there is a will, there is a way. Wherever there is a political will, there is a political way as well. Biden is that was the way he was marketed, as a second FDR or a Lyndon B. Johnson, who's been in the Senate for many years and he knows his way around the Senate. I mean, we come back to this in our other story about the checks and all that, but I mean, he can use the Senate, and because they have a slight majority and all that, he can use that as an excuse to not do something. But if he acts as he was marketed, he should use it to actually push through everything. Because if he's as capable as again as he was promoted to be, he should be able to push through anything through use of powers of presidency and all that, you know but
indeed.
so far the signs aren't too good, but we'll see.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Sam. And if you like this
Ah,
video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Any final thoughts, or was that it?
no, thank you for watching, and yeah, hopefully it was useful.